I'd like to introduce Erik Bagby. Erik works for the Fulton County Emergency Services, and he is going to talk to us tonight about the trunk radio systems. And Erik, I don't know how you want to do this, whether you want to put your...
I can actually just run it, put it down here, because I'm just going to...
Entirely up to you.
Show it off here today.
Very good. Just a few little things. Erik, you live in Smyrna, is that correct?
Correct. Born and raised in Cobb County. Born and raised in Cobb County. Don't hold it against me.
That's okay. We're all born and raised someplace, right? All right, and we're just going to turn this over to Erik and let him tell us what we don't know about the Fulton County Emergency Radio System.
First of all, thank you for letting me come here and bore you to death about something that I am truly passionate about. But first, a little bit of background about me and about Fulton County Emergency Services. There are many public safety answering points, or as GEMA is now calling it, Emergency Communications Centers in Fulton County. Up here, Roswell, Alpharetta have their own. But did you guys and gals know that Fulton County still has one of the oldest and largest dispatch centers, and we're still very much in operation. We serve most of the cities in the south end of the county for 911, so if you're in Union City, if you're in the city of South Fulton, Chattahoochee Hills, any of those places, and you call, you're going to get us. They're going to be dispatching your call for service out on a cab that I built, so please, hopefully it works. And more importantly, they'll be dispatching that call over our 15-site simulcast P25 digital radio system. How many of you all are familiar with public safety trunking systems or have heard about them? Okay, so we've got a few of you that are familiar with this technology. So again, our PSAP that owns the radio system, we were established in 1984, so we've been around. We actually have two different trunking systems. The P25 system is strictly public safety and has nothing but public safety users on it. We had money left over, believe it or not, when we implemented this system, so we said, how are we going to accommodate non-public safety users? Because after all, if you think your radios are expensive, this is $5,581 right here. Yeah, I know. It gets better than that. When more zeros are in a model number, the price goes up. They call this the APX Next because the price is so high. This is $13,311 and change. We'll get to why that is later. I think it's ridiculous, but that's why we built the DMR system with some money left over. And right now we have about 500 school buses throughout the county, mostly in the city of Atlanta, that use that to make sure your kids get home safely when they go to school. So, all my qualifications, I've been with Fulton County for coming up on 8 years now. Before I got back into radio, I was hired to put this radio system on the air and got in at the end of the project, which is always fun when you clean up other people's mess. I stepped away to build a CAD system. The county needed a new CAD. They bought a new CAD. Nobody knew how to deal with it. They said, hey, here you go. And for a year and a half, I learned computer-aided dispatch from the inside out. So far, so good. It's been running. I've been a ham since I was 9 years old. There's a couple people in here that have known me since I first got on the air back in the early 90s. And this club and Jim Stafford, so I'm going to dedicate this presentation. Hopefully I'm not boring you in heaven, sir. But Jim Stafford was one of the hams that took time with me to form my amateur radio career, if you will. And this is something when I listen to these gentlemen talk about youth and ham radio, it's so important. There are other people like me out there that are passionate about radio, young people, and we have to find them. I'm 47, I'm not getting any younger, just like anybody else is not getting any younger. Figured out how to reverse aging. God, I would love to meet somebody, maybe this young lady at MIT, she's gonna figure it out. But radio is a gateway drug to all things communications, and now it drives everything in our world. I know I've got too many devices on, but so do kids. I mean, I see 9-year-olds carrying 2 cell phones and smartwatches. Every one of those things transmits and receives RF. The networks that are around us, the commercial cellular providers put up, that started somewhere. There's a couple of people in this club, I'm looking at one, who's a godfather of cellular, who 30 years ago in a room said, one day, we're going to be able to get on and talk to anybody, anywhere, from anywhere. Well, now we're doing it. But it's so important to get back to roots. So I really am excited to see that happening in this club. This club is in the nation, far and above many others. I mean, some talk, North Fulton does. So anyway, just a little plug for the club. So yeah, I've got my GMRS ticket too. I am a FEMA ComT, ComL, comes with a job. I also co-founded a little organization called WC4RAV here in Cobb County, which serves Cobb County. And again, just like the North Fulton Aries guys do, we put community service through radio amateur volunteers in Cobb County. We've been on the books for 20 years now. We've got the only P25 amateur radio repeater system in the state. It's not feeling so well right now. I have to give it some attention. I'm working on that. So, again, some facts about our 911 center. Well, I've talked about who we serve. We take 800,000 calls a year, 80% of which are real emergencies, not, hey, come get this cat out of the tree or the neighbor's music is too loud, but people really needing help. So, having said that, it is essential that public safety radio communications work every time. I dedicate my life to it. I'm on call this week. I was telling these guys at dinner, I live, this is my agency, one of my agency phones. I live by it. If there's an alarm or something happens, I'm on it. I recognize that the people who rely on these expensive radios, they don't care that it's $5 grand, $6 grand. When they're getting shot at, when they're getting stabbed, when there's somebody in a burning car, that stuff better work. And it has to work every time. And so I make sure that I also hold our vendors accountable. So, anybody know what trunking radio is? I mean, why do we have this $19 million system? I mean, we use 14547, which is a conventional analog repeater, and it works fine. We all talk. Why do we need 12 channels? Why do we have to spend $1 million a year maintaining it and keeping me employed? Well, I'll tell you. We need trunking because the FCC told us years ago, we're not giving you 500, 600, 700 frequencies for your government. We're going to give you, if you're lucky, 12. If you're based on how many people need to talk, we may give you 20. City of Atlanta has 28, for example. So you got a problem. You've got 28 channels, and you've got 7,000 people that need to talk. You got a problem. Years ago, this company called E.F. Johnson said, hey, if we take repeaters, we connect them together, we put a little bit of smarts on them, and we use some CTCSS, or in this case DCS signaling, to isolate groups of users. You know, not everybody talks at the same time. You certainly can't get on there when I'm talking or Donnie's talking. I mean, shoot, you're going to be busy tone forever. So, yeah, I couldn't resist. And I know Donnie's out there watching, so I had to say that. So, the engineers at E.F. Johnson came up with Logic Trunked Radio, LTR, the very first trunking. And going back in time, before we had these wonderful cell phones, when our fathers were still working out how they were going to make this work, everybody wanted two-way radio. I mean, it was, if you had a business, you had to have a radio in that truck to go deliver that package. Or if you're a Terminix guy, to go service that account, you used radio. Quickly, the frequencies filled up. That's where trunking came from. In public safety, of course, like everything in government, we love expensive toys. So back in 1986, the Fulton County Marshal's Department said, we want trunking. And they bought one of the very first analog trunking systems that Motorola ever made, called Privacy Plus. 5 channels. It was on one site up here in Alpharetta. Boy, they were king of the hill. It wouldn't be a few years later, until 1990, when the whole county bought into trunking and said, we're tired of trying to fight for airtime on 4 VHF conventional repeaters for Fulton County Police and Fulton County Fire. Now, guys, keep in mind, a lot of stuff has changed, as you know, a lot of you longtime residents. Roswell had their own UHF and 800 frequencies. Alpharetta did. Johns Creek was all farmland. It didn't exist. So a lot of this stuff evolved. The county invested in SmartNet, and that system we ran until December of 2015. And as good as she served this county, I'm glad to see it go, because towards the end, it was on hospice care. I mean, it was every day something was failing. So we replaced it with this P25 system, which the county started looking at in 2013, signed a big fat check after putting it out for RFP. I will side note, NFRSA, North Fulton Regional Radio System Authority. So NFRSA is a separate system that is governed by a consortium of agencies here at the north end of the county, except Johns Creek, who loves us. We do connect with the NFRSA network through something called ISSI, which is just like linking repeaters in DMR. It's the same technology, it just costs a lot more money because it has the magic P25 and Motorola attached to it. But it works. So right now, our county system supports the North County, especially where there are coverage holes. When you get south of the 7 sites that comprise the NFRSA's footprint, they seamlessly roam, just like a cell phone, onto our sites. And the users don't have to do anything, they don't have to touch the radio dial, it's all done in the subscriber based on programming and the network based on provisioning. And hey, for our cellular guys out there, a lot of what goes on in the back end mirrors very much what happens on LTE networks. It's the same concept. There's an HLR, a VLR, call processing subsystem, all the nuts and bolts. So again, facts on the system. So we want to talk about 12-channel TDMA design. How many of you use DMR? So we got a couple of DMR folks. So you know what TDMA stands for and why it's a incredibly efficient way of using narrowband channels on RF. You have interleave. At one time, you could, like when Nextel was around, they had a 6-to-1 interleave, which means 6 users, 6 time slots existed on one channel. But we're not that fancy. We're 2-to-1. The system that we implemented is designed to support TDMA on all the voice channels, which means 2 people can talk at a time, one on one time slot, one on time slot 2. 2 different talk groups, so it enhances your capacity. So our 12 channels, now you would say becomes 24, really doesn't, because one channel is always a control channel. This little guy here, sitting here quietly, he's just sitting here on radio TAC 3. He's going, nothing's happening, nothing's happening, nothing's happening. Oh, wait a minute, something just happened. So that's a talk permit. But a whole bunch of stuff just went on right there. This radio sent a packet to the core that said, I'm Erik Bagby and I want to talk on radio TAC 3. Core says, yep, you're registered here, you can transmit, I'm going to give you channel 7 time slot 1. And then it says, hey, all the other radios on that talk group, wake up. Erik's talking. I know y'all want to hear what he has to say, it's important. And that happens every single time. And since we're simulcast across the entire county, it's, here we go, phone guys, IP multicast. That's all this is. This is nothing more, looking around, there's an IP phone right there. It's nothing more than that with the radios at each end. Same technology. So our system coverage is kind of a problem. It's one of the reasons why the North Fulton guys wanted their own system up here. They want better at building coverage. Well, I can tell you, that doesn't go away no matter where you are. So my system in here is a neg 105 dBm. Not great. It's usable, but it's not perfect. So our contract said 12 dB in building, body worn, wood frame structure. This ain't no wood frame structure. Concrete and steel. So how do we solve that problem? We solve that problem with our $13,000 radio, which is also a phone, and I bet you never, ever want to do this with your handheld. Don't, especially new hands, don't do this. But with this radio, it's not a problem because what it does is it says, oh, radio's gone, how am I going to talk? Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So that is over LTE. This radio has an LTE modem built into it that is on all the time, and when you lose RF coverage, it goes over to LTE seamlessly, in this case, Verizon. So as long as Verizon has coverage, which apparently in here they do, you're talking, you're listening, anywhere. So this is the future. of radio right here. Anybody that says this is a fad is wrong. I can tell you there are agencies in Georgia, including the city of Dallas, Georgia. By the way, it sounds great on LTE. It's P25 over LTE. Again, Dallas, Georgia, migrated completely away from this type of trunking to something called FirstNet. Does anybody know what FirstNet is? Does anybody have FirstNet? Because one thing that I found out recently is it is available to Aries personnel. If you're an Aries member on somebody's roster, talk to your FirstNet rep. So
yeah, I'm going to be working and deploying FirstNet for areas in Georgia. We're the only state
in the country
that's
approved to use FirstNet.
Right.
Why is FirstNet? Why is that such a big deal? Well, FirstNet was ordained by the federal government in 2017 to be the public safety broadband network. They put the contract out. AT&T said, we'll do it. There was another company that did that was not Verizon, not T-Mobile, not Sprint. And now the other two players are mad because AT&T is getting all the glory. Well, you should have been on the contract. And they are doing a lot. Like one thing I've noticed, and my cellular guys can correct me, but I'm just observing from the outside, is they're really segregating their traffic to what's called band 14, which is an exclusive 700 megahertz band just for public safety broadband. So you're not fighting with Joe Consumer whose kid's on Facebook adding videos when you need to get traffic out. Now there's a whole pecking order, just like there is in our trunking, as to who gets to talk first. But Aries is at least now, and amateur radio is now in that discussion, which I think is really cool. And it's cheap too. It's like $39 a month for a single line. So that technology is called Smart Connect. That's what Motorola sells this hyped up product as. It's also available on here, speaking of FirstNet. That's a FirstNet S21 that I pay for. And I have Wave on here. So if I don't have my $11,000 radio, I can always pop onto Wave and I can get on the air just like you would with Echo Link from your phone. So this is what a lot of people are saying, especially taxpayers like you guys. Well, if this works, why do we need the $12,000 radio? Why do we need the $5,000 walkie-talkie if, testing, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I can do that. Well, the first thing is you notice how much delay there is before it's out over here? So, you wouldn't take this into a fire. You wouldn't take this into a gunfight. You wouldn't take this into, even a water rescue, despite Samsung's claim it's waterproof. But these radios are designed to be shot at, stabbed. In fact, Motorola has a version of this called the APX Next XM that is designed to withstand temperatures of 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit and still function. And that radio is aimed at firefighters. There have been a lot of unfortunate incidents involving firefighters whose mayday calls don't get out because cords on remote speaker mics melt, cause the radio to stop functioning. Standards are coming out to say, hey, your subscribers need to be built better for this. Yeah, 15 grand, the price of a car, better cook breakfast for me. I think the day is coming very soon where these manufacturers are really going to step up their game and come out with devices that are purpose-built that aren't 14 grand. Because I'll tell you, I've talked to a lot of fire guys, even in our fire departments on the south end, and they go, we're still using 15-year-old XTS 5000s because that's all we can afford. I mean, you're telling me about $10,000 radios and I got to figure out how to buy a new fire truck or fund a position. So this is going to be here mainstream a lot sooner. This system will be at its 10-year mark in 2025. So the county-wide system that you guys, taxpayers, pay for, I say that because I live in Cobb, remember, rubbing it in my face. I spent a lot more. Cobb County, we spent $64 million on our radio system, but it serves 5 counties. You will see we have 15 sites. These are called RF subsites, and these are strategically placed. And you say, good God, Eric, some of these are close together. Palmetto APC, Palmetto. Here's the scale. That's about 8 miles. Yeah, there's a reason for that. There's a technical reason for that. Our system was designed to simulcast talk groups over the entire county. Keep in mind it was designed 15 years ago when Fulton County Police had responsibility up here on the north end. There were a lot more countywide agencies. A new system that, if I'm still around, will probably not look like this. I will probably have a north system and a south system and do it for efficiency reasons. But they did this because we're linear simulcast. So how many of you have tried to listen to NEP 25 trunking on an older digital scan? Yeah, it's the equivalent of wetting a fan. And there's a reason for that. That's what a typical one of our sites looks like, by the way. I'll take a moment just to explain what these things are. Those are repeaters. GTR 8000 Motorola, Gen 2 to be exact. You'll notice there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. You have transmit combiners right above it and a receive multi-coupler, and then that little box powers a tower top amplifier. This is a whole trunking site today. 20 years ago, a site like this took up half a freaking room. All IP, each one of those stations has an IP address. I can pull it up from that notebook and tell you what everything's doing. But anyway, so we talked about why trunking exists. It allows a large number of users to share a small number of resources. Theory, not everybody's going to talk at the same time. In practice, computers make sure everybody doesn't step on everybody. Spectrum efficiency. In my case, 12 narrowband channels can support over 500 talk groups. So here's the TDMA, FDMA discussion. So you DMR folks, know you've got 2-to-1 interleave. You can have 2 people on a DMR repeater at a time. One on one talk group on one time slot, one on the other. It's built in to the P25 standard, what we call phase 2, and DMR. So how does that work? It's real simple, actually. It's you talk, 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 you talk. Those are time slots. And the receiver on the other end is synchronizing, going, okay, 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 putting everything back together in a stream, which you don't know that it's rapidly switching because it's done in milliseconds, 10 to 14 milliseconds. In fact, if you get over that amount, you start having packet loss and somebody sounds like R2D2 and you go, listen to you sound like you're in a toilet bowl. FDMA, one person on one frequency, we say interleave. They call it frequency division multiple access. Well, how is it multiple access if only one person can use one frequency? If I'm motor mouthing on 145.47, your choice is to go to 444.475. Well, there's your multiple access. You have multiple frequencies to go to. So when we say linear simulcast, we are talking about compatible quadrature phase shift keying. Why do we do this? It's real simple. When you have as many transmitters on one frequency to cover a large geographic area, especially with digital modulators, you've got to balance those called constellations. If you look on a spectrum analyzer, you'll see. And you have to offset them just enough because there's going to be a delay. You may be closer to one tower, further away from another. This modulation scheme allows you to have balanced coverage in a predictable area. That's the reason why the sites are 8 miles apart. You get beyond that, you get what's called inter-symbol interference, what's called delay spread, and you start to get hash and trash. You get further out, like if you ever try to monitor one of our systems from well outside, your radio is receiving all the carriers at the same time, and it can't differentiate between them. And so it just says, that's garbage, ignore it. Same thing that happens if you take a broadband device like a cell phone on an airplane that you're not supposed to do and try to use the cellular network. You get above about 3,000 or 4,000 feet, your phone can't sit there and decide what carrier to hash on, and it sees everything and it just says, oh, screw this, I'm not going to waste my time. So that's why we use CQPSK. It allows us to make efficient use of our spectrum. Again, FCC isn't very generous with us. In fact, they keep taking more and more of our spectrum away to give it to the cellular guys. I get that. That's where things are going. It takes bandwidth. Cellular is broadband. You can't do anything with 12.5 kilohertz wide in cellular. It's useless. Those days were over, a long time ago. So again, this is something that you might find interesting. How we connect the sites. We have a microwave network that is licensed. Each site, if you look, like at Morgan Falls, if you're in the park and you wonder what those microwave dishes do, that's part of a microwave loop. And that's what our system communicates with its core over. We don't trust commercial backhaul further than we can throw it. Remember what I said, our stuff has to work. When all else fails, this better not. But even so, microwaves are subject to path fades from big storms, from birds flying in the middle of them. They've got diversity paths on each one, but it's not perfect. So we do have a secondary backhaul and failover on MPLS provided by, I believe it's AT&T. We pay Motorola, but ultimately it's Verizon, but it's really AT&T who's providing the fiber. So the shelters themselves, the buildings, including where the Morgan Falls repeaters are designed to withstand F2 tornadic winds. The towers are supposedly reinforced to withstand the same. I don't know, we haven't tested it. Maybe we'll have a tornado come through and we'll all have a meeting about that, and we'll see if if we'll get our money's worth. We came very close in 2021 where an F2 tornado came through Fulton Industrial Boulevard. You may remember, flipped over some tractor trailers, came within 300 feet of our prime and master site. You want to talk about having to go change your underwear, okay? Because what that would have meant if that site, its towers were damaged, the shelter were damaged, our public safety radio system would be off the air. I don't want to say indefinitely, but we still probably trying to turn it back up, rebuilding the towers, rebuilding the shelters, getting all the equipment, restoring everything from backups. I told people about that, but let me stop. We're waiting on approval to add a second site. Anyway, all the sites are alarmed and monitored by both our county alarm board and the Motorola NOC. So if something happens, they're calling me. As I said, Morgan Falls hosts both of our club repeaters since 2018, and hey, they got free 99 backup power in the form of an owned power generator. So when your lights go out, the repeaters should never. Provided the generators are fueled. And we had an issue a couple of years ago where a tree came down and we almost ran out of fuel because Georgia Power didn't want to touch, well, it was Sandy Springs Public Works that didn't want to touch the tree until Georgia Power certified that the line was de-energized. That took a couple of days and a bunch of screaming. So primary users are county users. Secondary, AFSEMA, the Peachtree Road Race, will be using 10 of my AFSEMA talk groups. We have other folks, the FBI, ATF, AMR up here on the north end, all the ambulances that roll up here on our system. On the south end, we dispatch Grady EMS in those south cities, so they are non-paying users on our system. We have ISSI, which are their interconnected talk groups from both North Fulton and Cobb County. And we also participate with these 10 UASI interop talk groups that are on every public safety radio in Metro Atlanta and are rarely used. So a little bit about the turbo system. Only 4 sites for that, which are up here at Henry Road, Morgan Falls, downtown on top of the Westin Peachtree Plaza. Anybody know what happened on January 2nd on top of the Westin? Did anybody catch that little oops? Yeah. That was a bolt of lightning. Rare. It was a hot day just like today. I remember I was leaving Kennestone Hospital. I was listening to 99X. Because, hey, it's back. All of a sudden, ironically, I go to key up my microphone on our club repeater, and the minute that I keyed up, the radio went dead. I said, did I blow out the front end on my truck? No, there's another station coming from South Carolina. Didn't think anything of it. Pulled into the house, my 911 director's calling me sends me a text message, says, hey, do you know anything about a fire at the Westin Peachtree Plaza? I knew immediately. I said, oh, fudge, except that wasn't the word I used. It was a Queen Mother dirty word. Because I knew exactly what happened. I could not get in my truck fast enough, ran lights and sirens to 210 Peachtree. The Cumulus engineer was already there. He's like, oh, you're late to the party. What do you mean? So I've already powered down the transmitter and the fire stopped. Lightning struck their antenna for 99X and put a big hole in the feed line, set the radome on fire, which of course is plastic or fiberglass or some kind of composite material, so it melts and drops to the roof of the Weston, 2 feet away from the feed line for my receive on our 800 system, and about 6 inches away from the transmit feed line, which are just laying across the roof, because why would we bother to secure them in conduit? Nobody's going to be up here. Nothing will happen like a tornado. But anyway, came close to having disaster at that site because that would have taken the Weston off the air, which is a key site, not just for MotoTRBO, but for P25.
Are they now in conduits?
Yes. Yes, there have been a lot of changes to the rooftop since. And 99X, actually, interesting fact, they have ordered a new antenna. It is going to have to be now helicoptered to the roof of the Weston because they can't fit it in the service elevator, even if it's disassembled. So the engineer is working on scheduling that, which means they've got to pull permits, insurance. I've got to be there because I got to make sure, hey guys, remember, we're here too. So, and we'll have, it's going to be a big show. So the MotoTRBO system is up there, as well as the site in South County, which is Fire Station 17. There's about 45 talk groups, mostly Atlanta school buses, nothing really fun to listen to. We do have, AFCEMA has some cache radios, they rarely use them. Unfortunately for Scannerland, all the talk groups are encrypted, not my decision. So, what do we do? Believe it or not, there's more than one of me, otherwise I would already be in the ground. All of us, as I said, are GEMA, CompT, ComL certified. 4 out of 5 of us have ham licenses. One guy does not. I ride him every day. He makes fun of me because of it. All of us are well vetted and certified by Motorola Solutions on our P25 system. We work in on-call rotation and respond after hours. If I were to get a call right now on this county FirstNet phone, I'd have to drop the mic and leave because this is my on-call week. And so what exactly do we do? Besides responding to alarms at the radio site, fires at your, one of your main sites, things like that, dispatch center problems, we also respond with cache radios. City of Johns Creek, for example, frequently requests cache radios. I have 250 cache radios available to go at the 911 center, and in addition to that, I carry, in a case much like that on my truck, 10 cache radios with batteries and chargers. So we can respond if there's a 2 or 3 alarm fire, if we're requested, we go. If there's some kind of incident, great example, a couple of weeks ago we had the, how can I say this, the civil unresters that were going to march downtown and said they were going to do a bunch of stuff, and GSP got smart, and so did APD, and put MRAPs and stuff out on Peachtree Street, and all of a sudden everybody said, yeah, we're going home. Well, our sheriff had an issue not being able to talk on some new Atlanta talk groups that were encrypted because nobody in this room, but people out there with cell phones and scanner apps were tracking movements of law enforcement. So the city's changed this encrypted talk group that we have not programmed into county radios. I get a call, Eric, we need help. Try doing it from the console. There's some issues with my, basically it's a glorified radio gateway in the back. Couldn't work through. So I said, I carry a radio gateway. I got an Atlanta radio with encrypted talk group here. I've got Fulton radio with encrypted talk group that sheriff has here. Patched them together with a tactical patch from my living room floor. Said it's taken care of, Captain. Have at it. You have to do stuff like that. So that's one of the things that we do. So we monitor the system. This is something that somebody asked me about. Yes, it is possible, and people do this, like to go out and buy great trunking radios and know just enough to be dangerous by reading various internet sites and get some stolen software off some Russian website, and they think it's cool to just program a subscriber on a government radio system and don't realize, like, unfortunately, an amateur radio operator in Colorado did by cloning credentials from a legitimate subscriber, and now he's in hot water with the FCC. The Director of Enforcement for the Western Division of the FCC. And this is somebody like me who has been in ham radio for 40 years. So we know better. Don't do that. Get a scanner. I mean, I realize that. But understand that this is one of the things that we're paid to do, is monitor the network. We have some software installed called GenWatch, which looks for those clone IDs. It looks for funny stuff. It sends us alerts. It says, hey, somebody's doing the impossible drive. They're keying up on the North County when 2 seconds ago, that legitimate ID was South County. Cellular guys go, yeah, we did that 20 years ago, big deal.
40.
Yeah, 40, exactly. We're a little behind, as you see. You know, I've got gigabit internet on my hip. We do have integrated voice and data on the trunking system. It's 9600 baud. Amateur radio's faster. But we monitor everything, including the physical plants, which is why Morgan Falls is safe from intruders. And hey, ask me how I know that Sandy Springs police will respond to an alarm there. Because I was there one night, and Motorola, in their infinite wisdom, did not call our comm center. They called Chatcom and said, you have an alarm at Morgan Falls. I turned around in the shelter, and all of a sudden I hear, Sandy Springs police, keep your hands where I can see them. And I'm like, hey dude, I'm Fulton County. Don't you see the truck out there with the tag that says GV? And he's like, just keep your hands up. And I said, my credentials are hanging around my neck. I promise I'm the real deal. And he was like, oh, well, it looked like a burglary. And he said he couldn't see the back of my truck because the lift gate was open. I was in a hurry, so give credit for that. They do respond. But we also monitor the temperature in there. One day it got up to 140 degrees. So the engineering of the GE Master 2 repeaters that you guys have for the club survived, you know, extremely high temperatures. I'm surprised. And it was funny, that weekend, everybody was noisy in the repeater and I couldn't figure out why. I get a delayed alarm from the NOC saying, we have a high temperature. Bearcom's tech made it there before I did. He said, he calls me, he says, it's 141 degrees. He had the doors open, fans, got it down to about 120. There was an issue with one of the compressors. The AC guys came out and fixed it. That was a fun night. So we are constantly monitoring, not just our sites, but our club's equipment. Because after all, if I don't have a place to talk, I'll explode. So what can I listen to and how? Our system requires a phase 2 capable scanners such as the Unit and SDS series, which cost ridiculous money, but they work very well. Reason why? Most of the P25 scanners made within the last 20 years do not know how to deal with compatible quadrature phase shift keying because they're strictly set up for C4 FM. They see the AM component of a CQPSK carrier and they go, ooh, that's noise, that's trash. They kick it out. Well, when you do that, you just strip off some of the data, which is why it sounds like crap coming out of the other end, unless you present it with a perfect symbol rate. You read on forums, guys are getting rabbit ears with antennas trying to figure out how to position their scanner to get the perfect signal. Waste your time. You can also get a $15 SDR dongle and some free software to accomplish the same thing. Most of our primary dispatch talk groups are in the clear. Everything you really want to listen to. Sheriff, Marshal, the DA even, they're interesting. And a lot of 3-letter agencies that are guests on our system don't bother to use encryption, so have at it. Johns Creek is encrypted, and as far as police, there's no discussion about that. That is their option as a system user and a stakeholder, and we understand why. So you can listen to all that SWAT stuff. Sorry, you can't. Same thing with jail ops, all that's locked down. But again, fire dispatch, EMS, you can spend hours listening to cats being pulled from trees and people fighting. MotoTRBO is encrypted. All the interop talk groups are unencrypted. So any special event like the Peachtree Road Race, they're going to be using AFCEMA TAC 1 through 10. You can hear those on any scanner and enjoy. Hams do a much better job. Those folks don't really know how to use radios the way that we do. So Radio Reference has a complete, fairly accurate listing of talk groups. And SDS scanners, all you gotta do is put in your zip code and boom, go to town. No, it's not paid by unit, believe me. Any questions, comments? Because I mean, I have run my mouth. I'm not gonna explode. Anybody? Yes, back here.
Hey Eric, my name is Scott, KM4JXE.
Come over so the Zoom folks can hear you.
Scott came for Jackson. Can you talk about, you may know, Griffin, I believe, 30 days ago, so had a tornado come through, took down the 911 center, I believe, and knocked a lot of people off. Can you, I don't know what you know, or can you elaborate on it?
So yes, to his point, let me get back up here so I'm not creating feedback. So yes, we had that tornado come through. Those people are still trying to get their lives back together and, you know, keep them in your prayers. So their 911 center actually had two things happen. Lost commercial power. They had a generator that failed. They got that back up. But something that I'm so glad I don't have to worry about, the emergency phone system that they use did not properly route the calls. So at Fulton, just like in Roswell, just about every Metro Atlanta PSAP uses AT&T's Viper and TRBO for their public safety answering point. And as much as I bash AT&T on the air, I will also tell you that the people that work in that group are the most dedicated professionals I've ever met. And I'm telling you, when something happens at my 911 center with a 911 call that gets dropped from the system, they know about it and they're rolling a truck. What happened with their Intrado setup is when it lost power, for some reason it didn't come back. The calls were being routed where they shouldn't have been. Still don't know why. The state is looking into that. It took them a while to get back on their feet. Their radio system, from what I understand, did not. They have a Harris P25 system in Fulton County. It did not go off the air. There were some sites that lost power, but the system remains functional. And that's something that important to mention about our system here as well as North Fulton. You can lose up to 50% of those subsites. They can go dark. Your system will still trunk. Life will still go on with reduced coverage. But when you lose one more site, your world comes crashing down. And that's something called fail-soft. And that is something we never want to see. It's happened one time in my career on the current system, and that was the vendor's fault during an upgrade. They decided to do something they never did, which is, oh, hey, we're going to upgrade a public safety radio system remotely. Nothing can go wrong. Oh, yeah. Okay, my one-off day.
Except that everything goes wrong.
I'm driving down Cobb Parkway to go to, my favorite Taco Bell. And all of a sudden, I start hearing Johns Creek PD coming out of my vehicle radio. And I hear, boop. And I'm like, then I hear one of the Johns Creek guys say, hey, something's wrong with the radios. Yeah, we know. And then the next thing, bomb, out of range. The system went completely off the air. Fairburn was in the middle of clearing a high school down there from a bomb threat. So you had firefighters inside a school who all of a sudden radio stopped working. Now, here's what we did on the radio team when we designed what's called the fleet map. On channel 16 of every fire radio is talk around, simplex. Hey, if you start hearing that tone, go to 16. It's muscle memory. You don't even have to look at the radio, especially if you're in a burning building. You can't see the damn display anyway. Go to 16 until you can't turn it anymore and scream for help. Incident command on scene knows, hey, I got to turn a radio over to channel 16. Sometimes, this is an operational decision, and I don't like it, but there's this fetish that fire chiefs and commanders have for wanting to be able to listen to an incident 20 miles away. And I have screamed because the ham in me comes out and says, hey, dude, if you're on one side of that building and I'm here and this place is blacked out because I can't see you, I don't want to rely on a tower site 10 miles away and everything in the way to communicate with you. We should all be on simplex so that if I say, hey, I'm down, Mike, I'm over here by this door, closest to the alpha side, please help me. You're going to hear me, and I'm going to hear you. And somebody out in that parking lot in a truck sitting there on their butt going, oh yeah, we got to do a mayday. They hear it. But decisions get made that are above technical guys, and that's one of the things that I have to deal with as a radio communications professional, is dumbing down a lot of technology so that incident commanders and command staff make better decisions. Most of the times they listen. I'm learning. It's hard for me to do because I like to talk, say less, but sometimes you got to call the baby ugly and people have to know. So anyway, any other questions? Because I know, like, you know, I got to be in Chattahoochee Hills tomorrow, believe it or not, speaking of Fire Chief Fun, which I'm going to have a great time. But does anybody have any, that's a good question about Griffin. Anybody? Bueller? Anybody? I just want to close by saying, like, amateur radio is what lit my fire. That's why I'm standing here. That's why I'm wearing this. I got all these toys, I got this fancy truck. I live and breathe radio and phones. It started with ham radio, so I'm really, really, really enthused to see this club fostering young people, making more me, because I'm not going to live forever. I mean, nobody is. Mike, thank you for having me. Hopefully I didn't drive everybody crazy, like, not again, that guy, get him off the repeater. Thank you, sir.